we're talking about tiramisu today. Hi, welcome back to Consultant's Corner. I'm Rebecca Brizi. This is my corner. I am a consultant. There is a lesson in tiramisu, and that lesson is about paralysis analysis and how to overcome it. We don't do the things we're supposed to do. What's even more frustrating is when we have employees who don't do the things that we want them to do. We are all suffering from the same problem, which is getting started. The hardest part of doing anything is just getting started. The main reason why we get blocked before we even begin is because we tend to confuse the goal with the work. We tend to confuse the thing that we want to happen with the things that we have to do. When we're looking at, oh, I'm supposed to have done this thing, or I'm supposed to get started on this thing, what I'm supposed to do is actually two separate things brought together. It's what we are creating, that goal, and what we have to do to get there. The work. The goal and the work are not the same thing, but because we so often speak of them as one, we stop ourselves from getting started. What am I talking about, and when do we get to the tiramisu? Right now. Consider the project, make tiramisu. Look at that phrase. Is that the goal or is that the work? The correct answer that make tiramisu is the goal. It is not the work. It is the final result, is to have tiramisu. Within that verb make are many steps. Within that verb is all of the work. When I'm looking at an instruction that is simply make tiramisu, where do I start? What do I do? How do I just create tiramisu and wish it into existence? Well, I can't, obviously. I have to do the work to get me to the tiramisu. So the first thing I do is break down that verb make. All the elements that go into that, all of the work. The first thing I do is not make tiramisu. The first thing I do is read the recipe, make sure I'm comfortable and understand everything in that. The second thing I do is not make tiramisu. The second thing I do is lay out all my ingredients to make sure that I have everything that I need. The third thing that I do is not make tiramisu. The third thing that I do is probably whip my eggs with the sugar and then add the mascarpone, and so on and so forth. There is no single action in there which is make tiramisu. I perform all these individual steps, at the end of which I have tiramisu. At no point do I perform the single individual step of make tiramisu. And if you do want the full recipe for tiramisu, drop me a line. I share my recipes because goodness must be shared. It is my mother's recipe, so ultimate credit goes to her. So when you have to do a thing, generally what you know is that you have to make tiramisu. It's hard to get started because make tiramisu is not an action. And yet, to get anything done, you have to take action. Find out what the action is. Break it down into its individual steps. You'll find that the thing you have to do is not make tiramisu. The thing you have to do is whatever the only possible next step is to achieve the ultimate goal. It's only ever one thing at a time. And yes, this does work much better if you write it down. List out those individual steps. Now, all of a sudden, it's not so daunting. So you can take that first thing and just do it. Therein is the secret, by the way. Your list is correct if everything on the list can be done, not achieved. Make tiramisu is something you can achieve with multiple steps, but it's not something you can just do. So take your final achievement, take your goal, and break it down into things that you can do. Break it down into work. And then just tackle the work, one thing at a time. Not only is it easier because it's smaller steps, but it's also easier because you know what to do and you know what's going to come next. Decision fatigue is real. I say that a lot. Do everything you can to remove it. What about when you're giving instruction to your employees? Well, tell them to do the same thing. You tell them to make tiramisu. Let them create the steps that they want. Don't micromanage them into how to make tiramisu. Although, of course, be prepared to answer their questions about making tiramisu. You're allowed to set some boundaries. You might tell them that you want a classic tiramisu, or you prefer something more experimental. You might tell them to go light on the liquor if you add that shot to your tiramisu. You might tell them you want it more or less sweet. You can always set standards, and then let your employees create their list and tackle this in the way that they feel best. Make it easier for them to get started as well by teaching them the difference between the goal and the work. Who's hungry? Lucky for me, it's a short commute from here to my kitchen. Off I go. See you back here next week. Bye now.